Welcome to the next big thing in professional wrestling podcasting. This is RUMOURS Gibby with your host, Zachary Gibby. Welcome to the Raw is Gibby podcast, coming at you from parts unknown. It's Zach McGibby, bringing you the next big thing in wrestling podcasting. Remember that if you like this podcast, leave a like and subscribe to the Raw is Gibby YouTube channel to get you up to date on the latest wrestling reviews and news. Don't forget to also leave a comment on the podcast if there is anything you want me to improve on for future podcasts. So let's get this podcast started with the review of the April 21st Monday Night Raw, which occurred in Baltimore, Maryland. So our first segment of this Raw is the segment in which Kane returns as the Big Red Monster and is announced as the contender for Daniel Bryan's WWE Championship. This was an interesting segment. We saw Stephanie McMahon cut the celebration of Daniel Bryan short. Daniel Bryan just got married to Brie Bella last week. And so we saw Stephanie McMahon cut their celebration short and just mocking the whole wedding of Brie Bella and Daniel Bryan. And then she made the announcement that it would be Daniel Bryan versus Kane at Extreme Rules for the WWE title. And I believe that they added a stipulation to make it an Extreme Rules match. Fitting. It was a pretty solid segment. It was very cool to see the Big Red Monster Kane make his return and being immediately thrust into the WWE title picture, which is quite interesting. And it was also great to see the Tombstone Piledriver being used by someone other than The Undertaker. Obviously, Kane has been using that for a while, but it's actually quite interesting that we're actually seeing a Tombstone Piledriver in WWE, let alone 3 Piledrivers in that segment, as Kane came out, beat up Daniel Bryan, and when I mean beat up, like Daniel Bryan is just getting beat up a lot and just being built up as this underdog right now. Just absolutely beat up Daniel Bryan, doing a Tombstone Piledriver outside of the ring, and then adjusting the ring steps, and then doing the Tombstone Piledriver on the ring steps, and then the medical staff came out with the stretcher. And then he takes him off the stretcher, puts him on the announce table, does a third Tombstone Piledriver. It's just, oh my goodness. I was glad to see the Tombstone Piledriver being used. I would have liked to see a choke slam, maybe one choke slam. But it was definitely interesting seeing the Tombstone Piledriver come back to Kane. It was a very solid segment. Really playing up Daniel Bryan's underdog, and I think this could be a good feud because of the previous tag team of Daniel Bryan and Kane as Team Hell No. And they could just build up the tension between that, and also having maybe Kane being embarrassed about being a comedy relief to Daniel Bryan and wanting to be something different. But yeah, this could be a really cool feud. I don't think it'll last long at all. I think this is just going to last at Extreme Rules, because I think Orton is going to come back and try and get his title back once Evolution is done, because Batista is apparently going to take time off. But yeah, I think this is just a one-time match. I believe this is the match that WWE wanted at WrestleMania, but obviously due to massive fan support, this match got moved to Extreme Rules, but this could be a cool match to look at. So definitely be a lookout on this match. I'm wondering where this will develop into. So the next segment we have is Sheamus versus Bad News Barrett. 2 of, in my opinion, some of the most underutilized guys in WWE currently. And this was part of the Intercontinental Championship No. 1 Contenders Tournament. And this was the second round matchup. I was expecting Barrett to try and get a cheap win to get him into the finals, but he actually won cleanly with the bullhammer, which was surprising. I thought maybe they would kind of build up Sheamus, probably give him that Super Cena mentality, but no, he lost by pinfall, which actually surprised me. It was also a really solid match too. I mean, they're both really talented wrestlers, and I feel they're very much underutilized. I think Sheamus should try and get into the WWE title picture soon. Well, he's got to find something to do, really. I mean, he's not in the WWE picture. He's not in the Intercontinental title picture. I doubt they're going to put him in the U.S. title picture. So I guess the solution really is to put him in a tag team, but I don't even know which tag team he should be with. So I guess the only real logical explanation for Sheamus is to turn him heel. And that's probably the best career move for him to do right now. Sheamus, good face, but, it's not working right now, and he has very little options as a face. So if they put him as a heel, it gives him another option, especially if you put him against Daniel Bryan and you have him as a heel. And you have Sheamus mocking him for beating him in 18 seconds at WrestleMania. So that could be interesting. And also, Wade Barrett, or Bad News Barrett, as he's called, very, very talented wrestler. Very talented. I think he should have been WWE champion at least once already, and they're really, really underutilizing him. But I'm glad that they're having him in the Intercontinental title finals for the number one contendership. This is really Bad News Barrett's last chance to really make a name for himself to try and get him in the main event. I don't know if the Bad News Barrett gimmick can get him over. I mean, not get him over, but get him into the main event. But this is essentially his last chance, and I guess with that clean win over Sheamus, I guess WWE realizes this is probably their last chance. But yeah, it was a solid match. Two brawlers getting in the ring together, and that was just solid match on Raw, and just showed how much the Intercontinental title means to them, which brings more prestige to the title, which is always good. And yeah, it was a very good wrestling match. Good wrestling match to start off for the Raw. And so our next segment Los Matadors versus 3MB. It was actually kind of a little bit funny, but it's your typical comedy stuff that WWE does, just typical comedy. There were some funny stuff. I mean, it's Los Matadors versus 3MB with Hornswoggle. Sorry. So what are you gonna expect? I mean, it's gonna be comedy throughout. Although El Torito has some unbelievable leaping ability, I know he was a professional wrestler down in Mexico, which surprises some people. But he has an amazing jumping ability for a smaller guy. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what they're gonna do with El Torito with his wrestling ability, but definitely not. I definitely don't see a Hornswoggle versus El Torito match in the works. But yeah, just typical match. So we had next the Shield facing off with Evolution, the reformed Evolution. They came out all in nice suits. It was nice to see Batista not having the jerk look or the douche look. I mean, it was very interesting. It was a interesting segment, and I really am liking what they're doing with the Shield versus Evolution. I wish this would go on longer, but apparently Batista's taking a break. So thank you, Batista, for doing almost nothing except putting over Daniel Bryan. So thank you, Batista. But this should be an interesting match. I know Batista's gotten better, but I don't really like the fact that he can just walk in and think he can get a title shot because he's former WWE alumni. But who knows? I believe it's to promote his Galaxy, which actually looks kind of interesting. But anyways, this was a good promo. Great way to build up the impending feud between the Shield and Evolution. Again, excellent job by the production team with the Evolution highlights. Just definitely the production team needs to get a lot more credit for all the stuff that's going on in WWE right now. They really do. They've got some good stuff going down in WWE. really got to give props to those guys. So the next match was the Usos versus Goldust and Cody Rhodes. We had Ryback and Curtis Axel on commentary. Ryback just took over commentary, and I actually am a big fan of Ryback. I thought his face gimmick was really getting over well with the crowd, and I think he definitely had the chance to be a main event guy. They just pushed him way, way too early. Just way too early. But the match itself between the Usos and Cody Rhodes was pretty good. I liked it. We're probably going to see Ryback and Curtis Axel versus the Usos. I'm going to say pre-show match. I know last week I said that maybe it's Damian Sandow versus Big Show, but we saw nothing to continue that storyline, so that promo for right now seems absolutely pointless. So maybe we're going to see the tag titles in the pre-show match, but I guess we'll see. Usos have been a solid champion in my opinion, and I think they'll have a little bit of a longer reign. I doubt we'll see Ryback and Curtis Axel take the titles from the Usos. I highly, highly doubt that. But it was a solid match. And Ryback was just really good at the commentary. I mean, his promo skills are starting to get a lot better, which is really surprising to me, considering that he wasn't talking when he debuted. And so now he's talking, and he's kind of embracing his personality a little bit, and he's turning into a very good talker, and I'm really surprised about that. And I think WWE should see that and try and maybe, do something with that, but I doubt it. But Ryback really started to improve, and once he improves more in the ring, I think WWE will start to take notice. But yeah, anyways, the Usos versus Goldust and Cody Rhodes match, good match. I liked it. Your tag match, and just Ryback and Curtis Axel just on the announce table. Specifically, Ryback just took over. So yeah, it was good. I liked the match. Layla versus Emma. This was not a good match. It's not. They're really again. They're underutilizing Emma and even Layla too. I mean, Emma's just. It's just amazing what they're doing for a gimmick for her. It's not good. I mean, Santino heel is better than Santino face. I want to see some Santino heel, like more heel Santino, because he was actually entertaining as a heel. But as a face, he's kind of just bland, boring, and I don't really find him that entertaining. There are some moments where he has his moments where he is entertaining, but other than that, it's just he's kind of trying to force jokes onto the audience, and it's not really that good. But the match, I definitely know that they could have had a much, much better match, considering Emma's talents and even Layla's talents too. So yeah, it wasn't the best match. So then we had Cesaro versus Rob Van Dam. I didn't really like this match, really. I mean, Van Dam does not seem to be having some good chemistry with some of these guys recently. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I was a little surprised he couldn't gain some chemistry with Cesaro. It looked off, like with Alberto Del Rio. Like, it just looked completely off. There were moments where it was kind of mind-boggling seeing this match. It wasn't necessarily a bad match, but it was just, there were moments where you're like, Van Dam's not really kind of into it. But I guess maybe that's just his return. I'll give him another couple of weeks to get back into the groove, but I'm not really impressed with Van Dam. I thought maybe he'd improve a bit quicker, considering he's been wrestling on the indies, I believe. But yeah, I mean, Van Dam's not really clicking with some of these guys right now, and he won the match after Swagger interfered in the match, causing Cesaro to be counted out and Van Dam winning. So I guess we're going to see Cesaro versus Jack Swagger at Extreme Rules. I'm going to say strap match because a lot of the Extreme Rules matches, Extreme Rules pay-per-views, have had a strap match in them. JTG versus Shad Gaspard comes to mind, unfortunately. But also Sheamus versus Mark Henry also comes to mind. But yeah, I think we're going to see another strap match. CM Punk versus Umaga in a Samoan strap match. That's also another strap match that happened at Extreme Rules. So I think we're going to see a strap match between Cesaro versus Jack Swagger at Extreme Rules. I think that's usually how they play it with their tag teams. And so it'll be interesting what they're going to do to carry out this feud. I really want to see Dutch Mantel and Zeb Coulter. I'm thinking of the other times in the early WWE. Zeb Coulter and Paul Heyman duke it out. Well, not duke it out, but like war of promos. So I'd like to see more war of promos between Coulter and Heyman. That'd be really, really cool to watch. But yeah, Rob Van Dam advances, so it's Bad News Barrett versus Rob Van Dam in the Intercontinental Title Championship tournament to be the number one contender. I'm interested to see how that match goes. I wonder how Bad News Barrett will go with Rob Van Dam. But who knows, maybe Van Dam will make a drastic improvement, but we'll see. So the next match was Oksana versus Paige, a rematch from SmackDown. It was, again, your typical match for Paige, getting beaten up and then doing a comeback and then putting in that crazy modified Scorpion Crosslock. It wasn't the greatest match, but considering other Divas matches, especially the Layla versus Emma match, this was definitely a lot better. So I wonder how they're going to do with Paige. I guess they're building her up as an underdog too. But I hope they kind of, once they get away from the underdog phase, maybe bring in that NXT persona that she had, which was really, really awesome. But it was essentially the same match that happened on SmackDown, just a bit slower at times. But yeah, it was essentially the same match. But a good match for a Divas match. So our next match was Rusev versus Sin Cara. This was an interesting match because Cara actually hit a bunch of offensive moves, which kind of surprised me considering that he's a smaller guy and Rusev is just, power. But it was interesting and it was kind of showing the human side, which made it interesting more for Rusev. And I guess they're starting to learn that now more with their squash matches, which is quite interesting. And but obviously Rusev won with the accolade. Again, I'm still not really seeing it, but they definitely pushed him up better. I think he's definitely going to be a solid. He may be a solid mid-carder. I'm not sure about main event. The gimmick just reminds me of 1993. But Rusev could be something. He's definitely a big guy, and it's interesting the manager and the wrestler connection between him and Lana. With Lana doing all commands and all that, which is very interesting to watch. It's something different that we haven't seen in WWE in a while. So it's interesting, and it was announced too that'd be Rusev versus Xavier Woods and R-Truth, so in a handicap match. So I guess we're going to see Rusev beat both of them. I would be utterly shocked if that were not to happen. Utterly shocked. But yeah, it was your standard squash match, but it made Rusev look a little bit more human, which was quite interesting. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. So our final match of the night was the entire Wyatt family versus John Cena. This was my favorite part of the show, and it was just very interesting how Cena's kind of changing his mindset. I guess I'm much more of a fan of this than I was of the promo last week. I know a lot of people liked the promo last week, but I didn't really like it because of Cena's corny jokes and all that. I know he got serious at the end, but still, it makes do to, not have those corny jokes in. And I guess we're starting to see Cena be totally confused on why the WWE Universe is cheering for Bray Wyatt, because Bray Wyatt has a more awesome gimmick than John Cena. But it was just a cool match, and Luke Harper always has the best facial reactions. He just always has the best facial reactions. It's priceless watching some of his facial reactions. I mean, they're memes in itself, Luke Harper's facial reactions. But he's also a really, really solid wrestler, and I'm glad they're utilizing him more. We haven't really seen much of Rowan. From what I've seen, he's not too bad of a wrestler, but definitely not near that. Definitely not near that wrestling capability of Wyatt and Harper. But he's not a bad wrestler either, so it's not entirely hit or miss with Rowan. But yeah, anyways, that was Raw. Cena won by disqualification, which was interesting. So I'm guessing we're gonna see. Some more. I'm guessing we're gonna see Bray Wyatt versus John Cena at Extreme Rules again. They did. They announced for Steel Cage. What am I saying? But I'm glad they're building this up more and just having Cena kind of being a bit more scared and Wyatt just kind of like intimidating him a little bit, kind of showing the human side of Cena, which is very interesting to watch, and I would definitely be watching that a lot more. But yes, that was the entire Raw. It was a solid Raw. There were little moments where it was kind of not at its best, but I thought it was better than the Raw last week. So I would give the Raw this week a B+. Not near. It would be an A- if they had got rid of some of those comedy matches, and better utilize Emma, and also maybe do a little bit more with Paige. But yeah, it wasn't a bad Raw. I mean, I liked it. It was enjoyable. I guess we're going to see what happens at the next Raw. But yeah, it was a solid Raw. So I guess we'll move on to the wrestling news and rumors of this week. So Mick Foley announced that he is not going to sign a new WWE Legends deal, citing some issues with the video game license for the WWE video games. This is interesting because Mick Foley is a dedicated WWE guy. So I'm interested to see what he'll do without the Legends deal. I'm guessing it's a money thing because THQ went bankrupt and I guess he didn't get his full pay from THQ. So I guess that's what's going on here. But yeah, it's interesting that he's not going to sign a new Legends deal. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting what he does. I mean, speaking of which, Jeff Jarrett, former owner, well, I believe he's still an owner, but former president of TNA, has now started a new wrestling promotion called Global Force Wrestling. This is an interesting new promotion. I was going to say, now that Mick Foley's off his Legends deal, maybe he goes to Global Force Wrestling. I don't know. Do they have enough cash for Foley? I'm not sure, but you never know in wrestling. But yeah, Global Force Wrestling was announced by Jeff Jarrett. We haven't heard if Toby Keith is involved. There was rumors a while ago that Toby Keith and Jeff Jarrett were going to buy TNA back. But I guess that's not going to happen, and I guess they just said, you know what, we're going to start our own promotion. So I'm hoping Jeff Jarrett learns from his mistakes at TNA and maybe does a better promotion here for Global Force Wrestling. I think I'm going to do an opinion video on Global Force Wrestling and who I want to see in Global Force Wrestling. Just an opinion video. That would probably release on Friday. Just a small little opinion piece. on Global Force Wrestling. I'll go more in depth on Global Force Wrestling on Friday. Other news this week, nothing new on Sting. AJ Lee's going to leave. She's going to take a bit of a break. I believe it's a month break for AJ Lee. This is probably just to get her back with CM Punk. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because apparently they're getting married, so maybe it's a marriage thing. But I guess I don't know. Maybe it's just some personal stuff, but maybe she's just a little, just needs a little break. What else is there in the news today? Brock Lesnar's not going to be back for a while. Probably coming back at around SummerSlam, potentially to face Daniel Bryan. That would be an interesting match to watch. People were saying he could be the next WWE World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think so. Unless Brock Lesnar wants to work more dates, I highly doubt he's going to be the next WWE World Heavyweight Champion. But I would definitely pay to watch a Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar match, just because of how talented those two guys are, and I'm hoping that they'll have some good chemistry in the ring. Anything else here? We've got WWE Creative. The reason why they're doing this Evolution and the Shield match is to help really put up Roman Reigns as the next main event star in WWE, so that they could set up a potential match between him and Triple H, which could be an interesting match. I think they're going to have to do a bit more with Reigns in order to get him to that main event caliber status. Not that they're not pushing him. I mean, they gave him the record for most Royal Rumble eliminations, and they had him spear everybody at Survivor Series. And so I'm wondering what they're going to do. His talking is starting to come in a little bit. He's definitely gotten a lot better in the ring, considering where he was as a football player. But we'll see how it develops. I think he can be a good wrestler. I would like to see Seth Rollins maybe get a bit more of a focal point, but I think they're going to just separate Roman Reigns, turn him babyface, and keep Rollins and Ambrose heel, and have Reigns turn face. That could help work for Ambrose and Rollins going into the tag team division a little bit until they find something to do for Ambrose and Rollins. That could be interesting to see. But other than that, other than Batista taking a break, there's nothing else really to the latest Raw wrestling news. So thanks for listening to the Raw is Gibby podcast. If you like this podcast, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the Raw is Gibby YouTube channel. If you have any comments you want to say about the podcast and how you think I should improve the podcast, leave a comment below on the video. Before I go, just wanted to say, reiterate that I will probably do a opinion video on Global Force Wrestling and how that is going to fare with the market between WWE, TNA, and Ring of Honor, all those wrestling promotions, and who I think should go into that promotion. I think there's a lot of talented guys that can go into that promotion. So stay on the lookout for that. Thanks for listening to the Raw is Gibby podcast. This is Zach Gibby signing out.